Matt, welcome aboard to the show. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, Ari, what's going on, man?
So Matt, let's talk about Italy. At the very early days
Yep.
of GPT, they
hmm
outlawed ChatGPT.
They did.
They've turned around since. So I think that outlawing basically, lasted 3 weeks or something like that. I can't remember.
hmm
But now they're building infrastructure, and they're part of this whole kind of axis of AI that's happening through Italy. Tell us the
Yeah.
story. What's happening here? Why is it happening this way? And maybe we dabble a little bit into why they said nope, no thank you initially and changed their mind.
Sure. Yeah, no problem. So, what's going on with AI in the European Union, right? Because that's really the larger entity that's kind of controlling things right now. Artificial intelligence is a society changing technology. On a personal note, I believe it is the primary enabler I think that humanity can leverage to get to a type 1 civilization. Like, it is that important, it is that impactful. And as such, nation states realize the potential of what is possible with artificial intelligence. And so it is now a battle of nation states, right? Or that healthy competition, right? That reshuffling of the world order in today's political climate, right? If you will. So the primary nation state currently in the lead, as it were, right now is the United States of America. Second being China. Third being the European Union. Very distant third. So the EU got together like, oh no, we got to do something. So everyone is in catch-up mode to the United States of America, where it's at right now. And the European Union has drafted a massive federal stimulus, right around 200 billion euro, right, to literally proliferate artificial intelligence, they call them like gigafactories all around metro areas in Europe, public education, developing their own large language models, like really building that talent pipeline. I mean, it is a highly impressive kind of like whole cloth solution to, really pulling up 500 million people and the world's largest economy into the age of AI. So it's really cool stuff.
So let's play a game of the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Let's do it.
So let's start from maybe the bad or the ugly. Are these mega factories, whether in the EU or in Texas, are they going to be the birthplace of the Terminator?
Really, we don't know. No one knows. No idea. Like, I mean, so you can say that, like, is it possible for some, like rogue artificial intelligence to, like build robots and then take over the world? Yeah, I mean, who knows, right? There might be a teapot orbiting Jupiter as well, right? I mean, prove that one. So, but
Do we need to build robots though, or is it
well,
enough? And do we need general artificial intelligence, or is it pretty damn dangerous right now?
Well, right now it's impossible, right? From just a physical standpoint. I mean, the world does not have enough compute. The world does not have enough data, like storage, to be able to actually hit the AGI, right? But they're rapidly iterating towards it. Now, this work, of course, is happening within, dedicated, facilities, very high tech, very closely guarded, very highly paid, very smart people, much smarter than I am. And so as they develop, this cutting edge technology and it iterates, yes, there is always the potential for misuse, right? With any new technology. Because again, I think that people misconstrue some kind of like esoteric threat from AI, right? Is like science fiction, that has really put into our brains and kind of inoculated us to what AI is. But we have to remember that artificial intelligence at this point in time is a tool. All right. I mean, fundamentally, no different than a hammer, a wheel and axle, a screw, a ramp. Like, it is a tool, right? It is a very powerful tool. And it's really how you leverage artificial intelligence within your processes and workflows is what the average out is what the outcome is, right? So we're using artificial intelligence for protein synthesis and protein folding to discover new drugs and all that stuff. That's amazing,
So
right?
we're
Yeah.
gonna get to the good in
Okay,
a
cool.
second. Let's stay in the ugly.
I'm sorry. So yes, it can be used
It's
for bad. Yeah.
okay. It can be used for bad.
hmm
I agree with you. We don't have AGI yet, artificial general, the
Yeah.
G being important intelligence. Here's my argument though. And let's see, get your perspective since we're in the bad and the ugly right now. Organized crime is a thing. United States has enemies,
Yep.
right? You used to, work in adjacent area to that. Should we be concerned about the weaponization of AI, which is basically a form of a nuclear weapon that can't be detected, that can right now can only live on really, really strong computers that cost
Hmm.
$20 to $200,000. But second computer, quantum computing comes around. I don't know if that's soon or not. You could have really dangerous AI in its current form
Hmm.
in your pocket on your watch.
Correct.
And even without that, being it mobile, even if it's on a server somewhere in Russia or China or anywhere, it's still really dangerous. Not because it's going to go and do whatever it wants. It's not going to start building Terminators, but it could hack into places. And in fact, organized crime has unguarded or unrailed GPTs and other modules,
Hmm.
which can do some pretty dangerous stuff, which are trained on exploitations. This gets real ugly real quick. If you think about abusing the general population through
Yeah,
hacking and through scams, if you talk about targeting basically infrastructure, right? Does the electric power grid really have the level of security that it needs to be secure against AI hacking, where it's not humans, but it's
I
automatic?
understand. Yeah.
Like, this gets really scary really fast.
Hmm.
And what do we do? Like, if you don't
Okay.
completely disagree with the premise that
No, no,
this is
no, no.
scary,
I see what you're getting. Hey, it's
what do
like,
we
hey, there's a
do?
lot of stuff that can go wrong. What
Like
can
this,
we do as humanity
yeah,
to,
I mean,
hey,
we need
wrap our
a
arms around this problem and all that
forget
stuff?
humanity. United States. How does United States protect itself from people that don't necessarily have an agenda for the United States to be here tomorrow?
Understood. So yes, in that respect, like as you're framing it, yes, we do need the legal frameworks in the United States of America and internationally, right? Because as you've correctly pointed out, yes, there are threat actors to the United States of America, like just like there are threat actors, right, to every other nation state, right? Everyone's got an enemy out
Us
there.
being one of them.
Yeah, for some reason, right? For some reason, right? We just have to be mean to each other. But irrespective of that, this is our reality, right? So, anyways, yes, and so we need those legal frameworks, just like we have with nuclear weapons, biological weapons, even the general laws of war and the Geneva Conventions. Yes, there needs to be
Okay,
international
so let's
consensus.
let's let's
Yeah.
break it down.
Okay.
This is one of probably three or four
Hmm.
verticals that we'll talk about, the
Let's
legal
do it.
international framework. Let's just talk about this for a moment, and then we'll jump to the other frameworks.
Okay.
Why do we have the Geneva Convention, and what would the Geneva Convention look like for AI?
We have the Geneva Convention to govern how we treat each other as nation states, right? How nation states are supposed to interact. Because if we did not have a common set of rules like everything else, our society would collapse, right? It would be chaos, it'd be anarchy. So that's why we have the Geneva Convention. Why do we need a Geneva Convention for artificial intelligence? Because it is such an impactful technology, as you've previously mentioned, like with like nuclear weapons and biological weapons, right? Like, I mean, you already see where artificial intelligence is being used for profit, right? I mean, just what the other day, Elon Musk, told his engineers, because he sure didn't do it, to flip a couple switches, and then all of a sudden, I am Mecha Hitler and blah 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 blah, because what one of the system prompts said to check Elon's own tweets, right? And then ground the response in Elon's own tweets, and it started pooping out Nazi stuff. I mean, yes, we absolutely need a regulatory framework around artificial intelligence in the United States of America. The key point of regulation, again, because this is a tool, remember, AI is a tool. So, like, we cannot regulate an automobile, right? I mean, we can, what somebody does with an automobile, we can regulate the consequences, right? But we can't say, all right, you can only drive your automobile on this one type of street or in this part, right? You see what I mean? So, like that, we have to have consequences for AI misuse. We have to have consequences and legal frameworks for data protection and personal privacy that aren't there yet. I mean, and then
So
I'm
let's
sorry, go
break
ahead.
this down because it
Sure.
gets hard, right? Like if China launches sarin gas into the United States, it's kind of clear what happened, right? Like that's a violation of international accords.
Yeah.
How do you know that China or anybody else, right? We're just using China as an
Yeah,
example.
yeah,
It
I
could be
understand.
could be Russia, anybody. I don't want to pick on any one state. How do you even know that they're using a technology in a way that would violate these new accords that haven't really been written yet?
Yes.
Because at the end of the day, you just have a bunch of noise, right? There's
Well,
weird posts that
no.
could be people, could be not. Like, is this something we can really identify and know that it happened?
Well, I so again, and I am not into AI forensics at that level where I can tell you these are the exact techniques that we use to identify these specific use cases by blah blah blah. Right? Disclaimer, disclaimer, disclaimer. But what I can say, it's like any other threat detection. It's like any other aspect of cybersecurity, because it's not like artificial intelligence is sitting here in my pen. No. right? We know the threat, we know the incoming threat vectors. It's your mobile phone, right? It's an internet connection. So chances are, if you're standing in the middle of a baseball field with a glove in your hand, you're pretty good and you're pretty immune from the threat of AI at this point in time. Okay, so it's just like anything else. I mean, and then you have to look at the liability, right, of where the AI is injected. Okay, so if it's AI propaganda, what was the effect of that propaganda? Like, how do we punish propaganda now? Is there some sort of international propaganda punishment mechanism that we can leverage? And if so, then that would then funnel through current legal frameworks, and then that's how we would handle this issue. In my mind. Also,
Yes.
again, as not as a barred lawyer commenting on this either. So it would really just be not so much of, oh no, we have to account for all this new threat space. It's more of, oh no, how do we apply these specific incidents to the current legal frameworks and then map them to this new dynamic, right? So that's, and then, but because we have to do that, right? Because we have to have these legal linkages, whether by actual written law, by Congress, federal, state, local level, or by precedents set by the judiciary, because we don't have that developed yet, yes, people are going to, make the fobbles and foibles and mistakes as they would in incorporating any new technology into society, right? We didn't have drinking and driving laws until we had a problem with drinking and driving, and that's the way that society changes and matures. And so
So
that's AI.
this
Hmm.
is really important
Yeah.
because, but let me make it simpler by separating it into two things. One, there's all our free letter agencies that are, and they separate into two types of agencies: inbound and outbound, right? So on the outbound side, meaning protecting from external threats, really what they're doing is what they've done forever, which is map out the risk and the threat environment. And
Yep.
then you have the buckets of threats, and then you kind of put protections for each level of bucket. And then you have a way to identify it. You have the forensics, and you have your countermeasures, which are going to be very real countermeasures. We're going to have security people who will be working on this with AI people, but then
Correct.
we'll have
Human in the
diplomats
loop.
who are also working on it. So we
Yes.
have all this outbound work. Now you started to talk about the inbound work.
Hmm.
Well, what happens if somebody in the United States uses AI in a way that is dangerous, but they're a citizen, or they're plagiarizing? Government's going to need to catch up and have laws for that. So
Yes.
basically, you're painting this really nice picture, which is very, very practical. It's a picture of, look, there's work that we need to do. It's a lot of work.
Hmm.
But the way that we've done this work historically, like we know that there's a threat of, a Chinese agent or a Russian agent or whatever
Yeah.
coming into our soil with a bunch of dangerous chemicals and dumping them in some kind of water purification plant and send poison to houses, for example. We
Hmm.
know that's a threat. We've put together mechanisms to prevent that, to detect that. That's one of the reasons why TSA, checks our socks and our liquids and all that stuff.
Yes. Yes.
Like it or not, thank you to 9/11. We've put mechanisms in place to prevent that,
Correct.
and diplomatic relations, etc. The same thing needs to happen for AI. That's your point, basically.
Yes. Yes. And so I think, and again, it's just like incorporating any other new technology into our society. I think what really trips a lot of people up with artificial intelligence is why it's so destabilizing, and that's the velocity of the application.
Yes,
Okay, that's why it's destabilizing. So for every new major technological advancement in human history, okay, we being humanity have had to wait for those technological enablers to catch
dozens of
up. Right? Yeah. So, like with the automobile example, okay, great. Thank you so much, Henry Ford. You got the assembly line. Oh, wait a minute. Now we need the roads. We need to grow the
yes,
rubber trees. We need to
yes,
train the mechanic. All this infrastructure needs to be built out. Well, guess what? With AI, the infrastructure's already there,
yes.
right? So it's
And this
not,
is scary because it
yeah,
happened in a few years. It took more than 30 years for the microwave to come around. The
correct.
microwave, you can
Yes.
buy it in for $200, $150,
Hmm.
at Target.
Yep.
That first microwave was the size of a room. It was
Hmm.
massive, right?
Hmm.
And that technology kind of matured over 30 years. We kind of figured it out. It slowly went out to the market. It became cheaper and cheaper and cheaper.
Yep.
And now everybody has a microwave in their room. But it took 30 years. AI kind of appeared 2 or 3 years ago when
Hmm.
somebody let the cat out of the bag. The corporations had it for 10 years, or versions of it. Somebody let it out of the bag, and now there's an arms race. The
Yes.
problem is, which you're describing now, is that this arms race is moving faster than any technology in the history of mankind.
That's exactly it, succinctly.
And the problem is that the technology itself is making the technology move faster, which
Correct.
is
So it's iterative, right? Like and that's why people say AGI is inevitable, right? Because AI again is essentially a
accelerating.
process improvement. You know, it
Yes.
is the von Neumann machine of process collapse, of stack collapse.
Yeah.
And
Now,
there it is. Yeah.
I have made a lot of predictions over the
Hmm.
last 20 years. My predictions are usually right in two verticals, one on what's going to happen more or less, two on the timeline. About 3 or 4 years ago, one aspect of my prediction started to fail consistently. It's the timeline.
Okay.
I said, oh, this one happened for 3 or 4 years. It happened 3 months later.
Hmm.
So this concept of collapsing and kind of self improvement of the technology has completely made us as human beings unable to predict when the next big thing is going to arrive.
Incorrect.
We just incorrect. Why do you
Yes.
agree? Why do you think that's true?
Well, because what you're looking at when you look at AI, when you really sit back and you study AI incorporation into our daily lives, right? What you're really looking at is you're just looking at a rapid, essentially cascade of stacks, right? And what that does is that allows you to then predict, to mathematically predict when your business process stacks will collapse due to agentic AI implementation. So
Fair, fair,
that's the
fair. But
$5,000
that's
answer. Yeah.
but that is true in the
Mhm.
world where you have a set technology. That set technology is impacting the corporate world, which you focused on.
Mhm.
And then you can kind of create a predictive analytics to say, okay, this is going to continue to percolate out to the environment at this rate
Yes.
with the set technology. My point is different.
Okay,
That
all right.
set technology could have a leapfrog moment.
Yes, okay, you're talking about that iterative improvement in
Yes.
capability.
Yes.
Okay, never mind. I'm sorry. I
So
completely
no, but that was a
misunderstood.
great point. I love your point. I love
Okay,
your point. That's about the percolation of AI into the public. A
correct.
great point. We should come back to that.
Sure.
But that next leapfrog in AI, nobody knows when it's going to happen. When it
Mhm.
happens, it's going to hit all of us by a storm.
Yes.
And that's kind of scary because suddenly ChatGPT, whatever, will be able to do something new that we could only imagine. And we thought it would take 5, 6, 7 years. It might be 2 months, it might be 3 months. And we see this happen again and again and again. We just had ChatGPT murder a Lovable, right? So Claude, for example, can basically do everything Lovable can do. So they just released a version and they murdered $1 billion company. Now, Lovable is going to survive. I think they're going to go into the corporate world. They're going to
Mhm.
stay away from ChatGPT. But the thing is that it had this kind of leapfrog moment.
Yes.
And that's the thing that's becoming incredibly difficult to predict. Here's my, and with this, we'll finish the bad and the ugly.
Okay.
If these leapfrog moments are happening all the time, right? Almost once or twice a year, if not faster than that,
Mhm.
do we need to put some guardrails? I mean, AI as it is right now, we're not too scared, but should we be concerned of these leapfrogs? Should there be a regulation where we're like, hold on, before you release this new nuclear version of
Mhm.
AI,
Yep.
let's take a look at what it can do because we don't want to arm, our enemies. We don't want to arm the public to do
Well,
dangerous things.
and I okay, so I think you're looking at it in so you're right, but let me go ahead and answer that from a different angle, right? So you're looking so you concluded that statement or that question by saying if we armed the enemies or we like, utilizing AI as a threat. Okay. That's not where the threat to our society really lies. Okay, it's not in we do a new AI thing and then we give a new AI capability to a competitor. Like that's not the threat to our society. The threat to our society again reverts back to the velocity of the adoption of AI into our society, which, like you just said, is the leapfrog moment, the one that we can't predict, right? And when leapfrog moments happen, they normally happen sector wide, right? So we're talking about finance. Okay, so once Claude, whatever, finally figures out finance broese, right? Wall Street's going to have a very, very bad day, right? You know what I mean? Like, and all those, those young college kids, and it's not going to be a good day for them. So it's going to have market sector wide implications. If you reframe that, right, and you throw in some, I think, Nassim Taleb, right, if I'm saying his name correctly, you
Easy.
essentially have sector wide black swan events for like one or two a year for the next 5 to 10 years. That's what you're looking at for the American economy and for the global economy, right? As artificial intelligence proliferates and, like you said, hits those leapfrog moments. So this is what we need to do. The guardrails that you're talking about are really with the systems, the social support systems of our society. Okay, because we can handle layoffs, right? Again, that's not the issue. We have job retraining programs, we have unemployment insurance, all that stuff. But we cannot handle the volume that's going
Yes,
to
massive
happen when
ones.
entire
Yes,
sectors get decimated and
yes,
that
one after the
transition.
other.
And
And
that's
they
what
might
is
it might start
destabilizing.
happening at the same time, right? It might be
Correct.
one, two, three sectors, but then it might be five altogether.
Well, look, dude. All right. So here's the thing like, math is math. All right. And it doesn't matter if you are a coder in Silicon Valley or if you are a super awesome quant on Wall Street. You are doing the same fundamental thing. So, as Silicon Valley is developing these coder agents that are self iterative, and coding is just math in and of itself.
That's true.
Like, as soon as it hits software development, again, finance, stack of cards, right? And then you look at the other, like mathematically numerative fields. Hey, accounting, that's gone. But wait a minute, look at the adjacent fields. I don't know. Are you a law firm that specializes in accounting fraud? Well, guess what? No, you're not. You're not a firm anymore, right? So, and that's the ancillary cascade effects as well. So, again, sector wide black swans, and then the secondary and tertiary effects.
I agree with
Hmm.
your predictions. We don't know when this is going to start rolling out,
Yeah.
but we're seeing hints of it right now. Engineers that studied computer science just come out of college, can't find a job, they go working in Walmart.
Hmm.
That is just a small signal of what is going to come. Is there let's do some scenario analysis. Is there a version? We talked about the kind of horrific, terrifying version. What's the positive version of this? And let me give you a few economic arguments. The biggest force that has created equity worldwide was not Martin Luther King or any advocate ever. It's actually been technology. So if you look at the distribution of equity, it's been the wheel, it's been the written word, it's been the printing press, it's been technological advancements like the internet, potentially AI. So now you take, for example, a gardener, but this gardener is brilliant. They're basically Einstein. But in today's world, they're a gardener and they didn't have the life circumstances to go and learn how to be engineers. In the world of AI, they go to ChatGPT. Their brilliance of ideas of innovation can turn into code within today. It's many, many hours, but tomorrow maybe within an hour. Now this gardener with their brilliance can build a business, can become multimillionaires. So it's creating a potential equalizer and the ability to redistribute equity in a way that only technology can do. Is there potentially a utopia that could happen due to this powerful equalizer?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's the whole point. That's one of the things that I do what I do. I mean, like, I want to get humanity to Star Trek, right? Like, absolutely. When you talk about because what you're really referring to in this scenario that I hear is really the democratization of intelligence, right? The opening, I'm sorry, the collapsing of those barriers, right? That would otherwise inhibit that entrepreneurial spirit, just startup costs in general, right? Well, I completely agree. I've partnered with a program right now in another endeavor of my life, that we just ran a pilot of an agentic AI platform for underserved communities, right, to serve as the back end for their business, right? So stuff like that is
Beautiful.
happening.
Tell us more about this. This is
Well, yeah,
beautiful. Tell
sure.
us more
So it
about it.
was just it's AI for ROI, because it needs a catchy slogan, and and just finished the pilot in Africa, and it's an agentic AI platform to handle, again, back end business processes that would otherwise be prohibitive from you or anyone else starting a business, such as human resources, right? How do I hire? How do I manage my payroll? Like accounting, how do we do our taxes, all that stuff, and really reducing those barriers to entry for a lot of underserved and economically disadvantaged communities. So that's the goal.
So there's a beautiful opportunity here
Oh,
that
yeah.
I think we need to grab the bull by its horn, so to speak.
Hmm.
Here's my analysis of it. Tell me if you agree.
Shoot.
And always feel free to tell me that I'm stupid or dumb or saying the wrong
No,
thing.
no, no. We don't need to be rude.
It's the only way I learn. Okay. I'm just exaggerating. I'm going to argue
Okay.
that the way that we as the United States, in kind of a narrow frame for a second, the way that our population doesn't go into serious economic devastation because of the introduction of AI will be predominantly through early adoption, meaning that I work with firefighters, PD every day. What I want to start, and this is a program that I'm working on, is AI training for firefighters and police department. So, how can they use AI? Because, if they can use AI, if your gardener can use AI, if the knowledge of how to leverage this to kind of empower oneself and build the business of their dreams, if kind of anybody can do it, then when AI starts to devastate industries, we're going to have the power to create new industries, to create new innovation, to create new. So I would argue that we, as the, let's say, Department of Education, really need to rethink our syllabuses. We really need to think what our universities are doing right now, because if our universities' only function is to make people productive and they're coming out of the universities and they can't find a job, something's going really wrong here.
So I think there's one thing I'll agree with and one thing I'll disagree with. The thing that I want to disagree with is I want to disagree with the premise that our universities are simply for making you more productive. There is so much value in a liberal arts education, and it will be so much more valuable in the future, right? Because in the future, no one's going to go get their master's in accounting, okay? But you're going to have still a lot of people going to get their master's in philosophy. Does that make
Agree.
sense? Because
I agree with that
yeah.
100%.
Yeah. And then the second part to that was yes, right. So again, and you're looking at that transition phase again, and that's that what we just talked about, those regulatory guardrails and those, social support structures to take, to process, right, these mass amounts of people. But yes, so okay, the industry collapses. All right. Say retail collapses, whatever. But Walmart, all of a sudden, we got 1 million or 2.3 million people just out of work, just sitting there, right? So yes, why can we not equip these people with artificial intelligence and boom, you're solopreneur. Go for it. Live your dream. Do it. Like why can't we do that? Yes, we absolutely can. And that will be a viable path forward for a certain percentage of them. Like, so we should absolutely,
That's
as
true.
a society, open that pathway up. Because what are we going to
When?
do? Huh?
When? When the industry collapses or today?
Prior. Now. So
No,
now,
no, no.
now you were talking about Department of Education, which, by the way, is set thanks to the big beautiful bill to go away, right? To be done with. I mean, but so whatever. If in the future we still had a Department of Education, and if I could design a national AI education and upskilling strategy, what it would look like is it would look like the establishment of those AI pipelines and those AI upskillings for the current workforce plus access to AI. We need a federalized LLM, right? Period. We need a public LLM flat out, right? And provide at no cost to our citizens. I mean,
So hold on, hold
yeah,
on. You said something I think amazing. I haven't heard anybody else say that. You're arguing
yeah,
that LLMs or AI should be like water. It should basically
absolutely.
be
It is
a
such a dude,
public service.
bro. All right. Okay. Look at this. You want to talk about a public service? Okay. So, in a certain percentage of the population, you're always going to have free riders. Okay. You will, no matter what the system is.
Hold on. For not everyone is an economist. What does a free rider mean?
A free rider is somebody that does not contribute, to the overall society. They're commonly given disparaging names, welfare queen, stuff like that, right? But in many respects, it's a lot of times somebody down on their luck, but there's a certain percentage that like purposefully, no, I'm just going to skate my way through. We know
Yeah.
that. All
So
right.
so what you said is that some of them are abusing the system, but
Correct.
some of
You're
them
always going to
really
have that.
a
Yes.
certain percentage is abusing, and you kind of can't deal with that.
Hmm.
But you can do incentive design and try and lessen it and
Yes.
not
But
increase it. But
yes.
let's not move this into supply demand economics and incentive design. But for the people that don't want that they want to be productive members of
Yeah.
society, those are the people that we're really focused on.
Absolutely, yes. Because you know what they're going to use AI for? They're going to use it the same thing I used AI for. I'm an internationally certified AI implementation specialist, or whatever they call me, or whatever the title is. And I did that all through AI. Like I literally just back and forth with AI. Study buddy, let's go, let's get smart. And I've been doing that nearly every day for 2 years. Right? I have my own AI subscriptions. I have my own instances. I build my own agents. If it's too complex for me, I got guys that I went to hackathons with that I just call them up and be like, hey, dude, we need to get a rocket on something.
So how do we
It's
That
amazing
process
at sorry.
that you're doing is a privilege that you can do. How do we basically create a shock absorbent
Mhm.
for the United States at large to be prepared when the industries start, let's not say collapsing, let's say morphing? So how do we create that shock absorbent? So we're talking about education, we're talking about having free LLMs and access.
Yep.
What is this program that, politicians at some stage we hope will come up with? What does this program look like?
In my personal opinion, it is so where there is destruction, there's always the potential for renewal. I'll
Yes.
just leave it at that when we look at the current state of the United States government.
Yes.
So, and however you feel about this current political environment, what you need to understand is this too shall pass, right? The sun will rise, the earth will turn, this too shall pass. And then when this does pass, right, we as a society are going to need to rapidly, and I mean rapidly, rebuild the supporting infrastructure that our society is going to need, not just to stabilize itself, but also to continue to advance and stop regressing. That's what needs to happen. The only way that we as a society can do this, right, in the resource constrained future, right, because national debt, climate change, resource depletion, etc., okay, is through essentially the entire re-architecture of our federal processes with artificial intelligence by incorporating AI into them. And the only way that we can do that is to ensure that we have the proper regulatory measures from Congress, laws on the books regulating the artificial intelligence development and implementation process. That's where we have to regulate. So that's where we focus the regulators on that narrow band. And then what that does is that leads to the ability of the nation state to properly re-architect the functions it's going to need to survive.
So what that means is
Mhm.
basically you're painting a top bottom picture. You're
Yes.
saying Congress is going to have to do what it does, which is create laws.
Hmm.
Those laws will have to look at all of the processes, wide spectrum, from the Department of Education
Yep.
all the way to basically money that we hand out to re-educate people if they lose their jobs, to how we train the next generation. So basically every vertical of how our society is
Society
built
operates.
and
Yes. Is
operates,
yes.
because
Is
it's an operating system, right?
it
Society is an
is. It
operating
is. Yes.
system.
Our laws are nothing but an instruction manual for an operating system. That
That's
is
right.
what our laws are.
So we
Con-
we
the
basically
and the
have to
Constitution is the kernel.
rebuild. That's right. So the Constitution, I hope, won't change, but the laws that
Well,
support the
that also needs to
Constitution.
as well. We can get to that one too. So everything that you see right now, as far as this social regression, right, this attack on individual rights, right, whether it be gay marriage, whether it be body autonomy if you're a woman, whether it be voting rights, gerrymandering, and all these societal ills that have kind of crept in over the past about 60 to 70 years, those are the weak points, right? That's what needs to be buttressed. Those are the cracks in the foundation that we need to fill in order to be able to build for the future, right? So, what are constitutional amendments am I talking about? I'm talking about getting money out of politics. Boom. I'm talking about term limits, right? We all know what the ills are, right? I mean, everyone can point to, like the again, money out of politics, term limits. Those are my two big ones. Enshrining body autonomy into law, like gay, lesbian, transgender protections, all of those. Bake that into the document. We need to update the kernel so we can re-architect the
So I'll,
software.
I'll agree with I'll agree with corruption. I think everybody that's nonpartisan.
Yeah.
We don't go into politics in this
Yeah, no,
show,
I got it. Yeah, understood.
but I'll say that there's half of the United States that would not agree with some of the statements that you made.
Hmm.
And so we don't go into politics with this show on the show, but I think everybody, cross party will agree on the corruption.
Yeah.
That's not a thing that anybody would disagree to,
Hmm.
but there's other aspects that, quite honestly, I think they're ethical aspects. And I think that depending on your ethical framework, then you could believe that in one thing, and in different ethical frameworks you can believe in another thing. And I'll tell you a short story. I was in China, somebody lied to me, I called it out, I was wrong,
Hmm.
because my ethical framework was the truth matters. But what I did in China, I actually highlighted somebody who didn't do what they're supposed to do in front of other people. So I basically shamed them. So I broke saving face.
Hmm.
So my argument is that you can have different ethical constructs that lead to different decisions. What you did right now is you showcased your own ethical construct, and I have no criticism for anybody's ethical
Yeah, yeah,
construct,
yeah, of
but
course.
there's other people in the United States who have different ethical constructs, and at least on my show, I don't disparage anybody's ethical construct.
Yeah.
So I won't say that I agree with certain aspects of the pro-life versus the women's rights. That's ethical constructs. I don't go there.
Ari, that's fine. But what you're talking about is resolved through the Constitutional Convention
Okay,
process.
so here's my argument.
Yeah.
Ethical constructs will never change in the Constitution because there's going to be too much disagreement between different ethical
Hmm.
positions within the United States. That's something that's never going to change.
Okay.
So I don't think that's going to change. If I had to make a bet, I'll put money on that. However,
Okay.
corruption, absolutely. I hope that the corruption that is cross-partisan, we see corruption on the left and the right. That's definitely something we should improve. I am all for that. I don't think anybody's against it. But my question is different. In the
Okay.
context of AI,
Yeah.
do you think there'll be needs to change the Constitution, ignoring ethical constructs? Will there need to be changes to
Okay.
the Constitution in the context of AI?
Yes, I can definitely see that. Enshrining the
Okay,
right of privacy
why?
into the Constitution.
Perfect.
So,
Okay, let's talk about that.
okay,
Why
here we
the
go.
right of privacy? What does that mean? What does
All
it
right.
look like today? What do we need to change?
Okay. It looks like today, it looks like absolutely nothing. Right. So, I mean, think about how many apps you've clicked through. Did you really read the terms and conditions? No, you didn't. So it's getting to the point, right, where artificial intelligence, I mean, is essentially, right, you're being trained on the entire internet, right? You've heard that before.
Yes, yes.
Okay. So what does that mean? That means a sufficiently powerful artificial intelligence can essentially run facial recognition on every picture stored in a database that's accessible to it. Right. Okay. So have you ever taken a picture or video with someone that you don't want to go be seen by anyone else? And are you sure it was ever deleted? Right.
Or
So
has somebody else took a picture of that by mistake because you were in the background?
exactly. Exactly. So, and keep in mind, this is everything. Like, this is traffic cameras, this is driver's licenses. So, what is occurring, right? So, when you look at what's happening across the world, this is what I see, right? Data right now is currently being structured. And I mean all the data, right? The databases are getting connected, the APIs are going out, the AI is accessing the information. And once we get to the proper level of compute, well, I'm going to be able to pull and you turn that temperature
Anything from
down, and of
anywhere.
course you get the weights, and I can get anything on you that I want,
Yeah.
right? Because it's out there. So I
So hold on,
believe,
let me
yeah.
translate that to kind of simple English. This MCP server that you're talking about right now, what it really is the ability for the AI engine to connect to any data in the world. We're doing this slowly, but it's going to accelerate significantly. The
Yes.
temperature that you talked about is
I'm
basically
sorry.
one of the
Yeah.
one of the mechanisms to reduce hallucinations, to be less creative, to give factual data. There's additional methods to reduce hallucinations. We can talk through that. It gets too geeky and mathy, but we can talk about separation of concerns. We can talk about all that. But there's a lot of methods that we're currently, and multiple parallelization
Hmm.
operation of AI agents, and then selection of correct results versus hallucination. So there's so many things that are happening right now that are going to solve the hallucination issue to a 99.999%, right? We're going to get to Six Sigma. So it's going to happen slowly and then all at once. But your point is that if all the information is correct and AI can actually do the job,
Hmm.
what happens to privacy?
Exactly. That's exactly it. What happens to your privacy? Because, I mean, once you combine artificial intelligence, excuse me, with quantum computing, cybersecurity is gone, right?
Yeah.
Or
Hold on, hold
cybersecurity
on.
as we know
Let
it.
me explain that. So
Yeah.
cybersecurity today is based on the fact that you have encryptions. Encryptions basically translates into the fact that it takes a certain amount of time to break the encryption. That amount of time can be hundreds of years if the password is long enough. Quantum computing comes along, 1,000 years turns into 3 seconds. Security's out the window. So these, like quantum computing, another existential threat to privacy, right? I mean, that's one way to look at it. It also will probably solve cancer.
Yeah.
That's another way to look at it, right? Everything has the good, the bad, and the ugly. So it's very important to be able to do scenario analysis and basically understand what the spectrum looks like. But from that perspective, quantum computer comes along, encryptions fall. We
Hmm.
have to have quantum safe encryptions, basically.
Okay.
That's a thing we could develop. And then we have all the data connected, so privacy falls. So we need these laws about privacy. What does that look like?
A good question. Not a privacy lawyer. I mean, it's like when you get into the nitnoid of the actual legal, that's a great question. In general, it's going to be essentially sovereignty over one's over I think a lot like what's happening in the EU, right? Sovereignty over one's likeness, sovereignty over one's intellectual property, sovereignty over one's voice, and just really, maintaining your person and really codifying the fact that essentially you have a digital twin is really what we're doing, right? And
And you
so
own that digital twin.
exactly, and it's a part of you. I mean, because right now with all of your, I mean, Ari, all of your personal information is thrown into marketing algorithms, and Google AdSense makes money off of it,
Yep.
right? So in the future, are all of our children just going to be little monetizations? Is that what really, really going for? Like where everything about their life is just exploitable at the drop of a hat? We talked earlier, right? I think we led off the conversation with the threat of propaganda and artificial intelligence into the population. Like it feels right into that. Because again, there is no right to if you have no right to your own likeness and its manipulation, then you already see the deep fakes of children that have been
That's right.
kidnapped, and that scam that goes on, and many more like it. But yeah, and that's right exactly what I think the flavor is going to be.
Perfect. Absolutely. I think that one sentence you said is that you own your digital twin.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be the starting point for all of this.
Yep.
And I've had this argument with many people. Many say, no, it's legal. Sure, it's legal today.
Well, does
But
that
if
really
I
mean
write,
yeah?
it should be legal. That's right. But I've had this argument like, oh, if you write a prompt, create a book on this topic in the voice of somebody else, that's going to be illegal in the future, in my opinion.
Mhm. Well, and also when we look at when we talk about illegal, right? So that's essentially having a copyright over your own voice.
Yes.
Okay, well then now we have to relook at copyright law. Because I mean, what happens? Hey, I can tell my LLM, give me a children's story starring Mickey Mouse and Bugs Bunny,
Yep.
and it'll do it
Yep.
just fine. Well, okay, well now I've turned around and I've generated essentially a product that I can then publish and sell. And if I publish and sell, I will, get hit with copyright. But does the actual GPT, right? Does the LLM, who has the liability for that? That those copyrighted characters were essentially used without paying that fee to the publisher or to the rights holder.
We've never charged the photocopy machine
Mm-hmm.
the copyright fees.
Exactly.
However, copyright law as it is today, if I do it for myself, nobody's going to care. If I start selling that on the internet, whole different story. Then the
Mm-hmm.
lawyers come after me. This is why my son is studying to be a lawyer, because I don't think lawyers are going anywhere. I think they're going to be a big part of the future.
Well, Ari, but if I can create my own story with Mickey Mouse, why do I ever need to buy Disney's?
Well, the second you start selling that,
Mm-hmm.
then you're in trouble. Now, if it's
But
for
you're not,
self-consumption,
and everyone's self-consuming. Because why would I go out and spend $50 for a
that's
Mickey hat?
brilliant.
I'm sorry, for a
That's
Mickey
brilliant.
video when I can just
That's
have the
brilliant.
LLM create it for my kids? Hey, and I can rig the prompt. I want it to reflect these values. I want the story to be like this. I mean, why? Why would I ever purchase from Disney? Why would I ever go see a Marvel movie?
You got me there. You got
Why?
me there.
You
You got
have
me there. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah,
That's brilliant.
yeah.
That's absolutely brilliant. Matthew, no better way to end this show with a huge compliment. What a wonderful,
Thank
that's
you.
clearly you have a brilliant mind. This has
Well, I
been
appreciate
an
that.
absolute delight to
Okay.
go head to head with you.
Man, I appreciate that because I'm running on fumes, brother. I've been trying to I think this concept. So yes, we got to
Well,
do this
guys,
again when I'm fresher.
ladies and gentlemen, there you have it.
Thank you
Matthew
so
on
much.
Fumes is still brilliant. And there's
Appreciate it.
one question that we ask every single
Yeah.
one of our audiences, and that is, if you had to go back
Okay.
to the most difficult part of your life, maybe your 20s, maybe later on,
Mm-hmm.
and you had to give yourself advice, what would that advice be?
This too shall pass.
Matthew, thank you so much for joining the show today.
God bless.